We are right on the brink of World War III. We have Europe just chomping at the bit to drag us all the way into this war, and I don't know if we can pull back from it, but I need to give you some updates on what's going on. Germany, France, and Poland decided to have an emergency meeting on Ukraine, and they've decided to take some steps that could drag us further into this war, as these NATO members who the United States is obligated to defend if they get attacked, is stepping into pushing for troops, more non-troop personnel to go into Ukraine. They want to start war production, missiles and weapons to be built in Ukraine. They're sending in factories and stuff like that. And also we have the UK spy chief out there saying that the UK is essentially in a state of war with Russia. These are big accusations, big things to be throwing around. The United States is just kind of hanging out around in the background, just watching these allies of ours go drag us into war. We need to talk about these things. We need to stay updated on what's going on because, friends, things are going downhill, and they're going downhill fast. Let's jump into it. Welcome to the Poplar Report. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade, and we're covering the news items, and we're piecing together things that are being said out there on the United States' behalf. And that's what's really scary about this, is that we have people like President Macron dragging us into war. He's talking about deploying troops to Ukraine. If they do that, Russia has talked openly about using nuclear weapons. Would we see that was provoked, or would we pretend like it was an unprovoked attack? If France and Germany and these other countries start sending troops and active combatants into the country, what then? We already are poking the bear pretty hard right now by sending in long-range missiles that are being used to attack civilian sites within Russia proper. And Russia is already starting to accuse the United States and its allies of not only sponsoring but equipping and enabling terrorism. And whether you agree with them or not, you have to understand that these guys have a lot of nuclear weapons. And that should give us some pause to at least try to see things from their perspective. Not to agree with them, but to say, what will they do next? Well, one of the things that's really surprising to me, I guess it's not surprising anymore, is that when I start looking for these quotes of what President Macron said, I can't find them in the Western press. I have to go to China Daily to get the quotes from what Macron said in his speech. I have to go to Russia Today, or RT, to get the quotes of what he actually said. If you go to CNN, don't see any quotes. You just see the spin. They just kind of explain to you in vague terms what they want you to think President Macron just said. And other quotes disappear. When the facts are completely absent, it's very troubling. And yet that's exactly what we're seeing here today. What did President Macron say? Let's listen to the war chihuahua, as I call him. The war chihuahua. He's all bark, but as soon as someone pushes back, he skitters and hides behind the United States or hides behind Germany. He talks a big game, but then when push comes to shove, France doesn't really have the military to back it up. And that's the truth. They got really upset about what was happening in Niger, but when the United States declined to do anything, France skittered away. It just, again and again. I mean, they have a reputation, and today it's still well earned. Their white flag is right there. All you have to do is just tear off the two other colors of their flag, and boom, there it is. He says, "We will never attack. We will never take the initiative." He's speaking in the context of them deploying troops to Ukraine. This is what will happen when they get deployed to Ukraine. They won't attack, and they won't take the initiative. Listen to this. This is so heartwarming. France is a force for peace. Today, to achieve peace in Ukraine, we must not be weak. And he added that France does not rule out the option of deploying troops, and Russia would be the only one responsible for it. Yeah, okay. So if France makes a decision to send troops to Ukraine, it's Russia's fault. We are not waging war on Russia and its people. We support Ukraine, and we are doing our best to make Ukraine defeat Russia. Okay, that's kind of parsing some words there. But you get the idea. Now, is Germany and Poland at this emergency meeting? So Poland and France sent their presidents to Berlin to have an emergency meeting without the United States on Ukraine. And some of the things that were discussed was that they need to support Ukraine, and the support must be immediate and intense. Not sure what that means, but basically the biggest stuff that Poland and Germany and France could send, like fighter jets, other things, they would require a long period of training Ukrainian pilots. So it's not like it can just give fighter jets to Ukraine. They can't give these sophisticated weapon systems to Ukraine without a large training period. Right? It's not just the weapon, but it's also the troops and the skills that they need to operate the weapon. So what would be immediate and intense? Does that sound like troops to you? Because that sure sounds like troops to me. We've already seen accusations that the long-range missiles that were sent to Ukraine before by Germany, by France, and by the United States have come with support crews of U.S. troops and German troops and French troops. And that's what Germany was kind of pushing back on, was deploying troops to support their deployment of the Taurus missiles. Sorry, I said that Germany had already deployed troops. The UK had deployed troops in support of their missile system. France had deployed troops to support their missile system, as well as the United States have deployed troops to operate and to train the people over there to operate those weapon systems. So Germany de facto told us that there are already troops on the ground in Ukraine by these other countries, and that they didn't want to join that. Now, France is saying, well, if we're going to deploy troops in support of showing people how to use weapon systems and potentially even using those weapon systems, why don't we send more troops that can do more things, more support options, more support things? As long as they don't get into, as long as they're not looking down the barrel at a Russian soldier, then that's okay and that's on the table. And France is desperately trying to get Germany and Poland on board for this. And they're considering it. But one thing that they have definitely started to take steps on is that they want to start weapons manufacture in Ukraine. And so they're going to be sending civilians and sending construction materials and all that kind of stuff like that into Ukraine to start building war and munitions factories in Ukraine. Which means not boots on the ground, but sneakers on the ground and work boots on the ground. These work boots are going to be foreigners who are going to be going and doing construction, who are going to be doing manufacturing. They're going to be shipping weapons manufacturing machines and such into Ukraine. Is that an escalation? It sounds like an escalation. But we have countries, not only those countries, but we also have the terrier from the UK who wants to drag us into war as well. I'm surprised that the UK didn't actually show up at this meeting, which actually kind of indicates that the United States maybe told the UK, don't show up. That will be embarrassing to the United States. But UK is absolutely on board with escalating the war, sending troops and doing all sorts of stuff. The previous MI6 chief, Richard Dearlove, he led the MI6 from 1999 to 2004. He's definitely part of the old boys club, letting us know kind of what the elite in the UK are thinking. He says, if you stopped anyone in the street here in the UK and asked them whether they thought Britain was at war, they look at you like you're mad. But we are at war. We're engaged in a gray war with Russia. And I'm trying to remind people of that. So the MI6 crew, which is basically their CIA, and their military is seeing themselves as, quote, directly involved. And so is Russia. Russia is considering the UK to be directly involved. Admiral Tony Radakin said that the UK had helped the Ukrainians with strategy to destroy Russian ships and open up the Black Sea. And so even the Russians are admitting that it's no secret for Moscow that the British provide different forms of support to Kiev, such as people on the ground and intelligence. So not only does Germany say that UK has people on the ground, but rather Moscow also says that the UK has people on the ground. Now, I promise you, if the UK has people on the ground, that the United States definitely does. Now, nobody wants to say that about the United States because, you know, nobody wants to rat out their big brother who is the only one that's supporting them and backing them up. Nobody wants to get in trouble with Washington, D.C. But here's the fact, and I've said this many times, is that the United States definitely has troops on the ground in Ukraine. The United States has a heavy CIA presence in Ukraine. The United States has a heavy mercenary contingent. If you think that the Black Waters and the contractors aren't there in force, you got another thing coming. If you think that the Green Berets aren't there training the Ukrainian soldiers before they head to the front, you got another thing coming. When we start talking about how many thousands of U.S. troops are probably in Ukraine right now, that's probably not an exaggeration. Now, when you call them troops, when you see that they were trained by the Green Berets or trained by the Rangers, but then they left the service of the United States government and were immediately hired by these private companies that operate under the auspices of the CIA, operate under the auspices of the U.S. government, but they're not troops because they're contractors. But the simple fact is, in order to retain their security clearances, they cannot do anything that the United States government doesn't give the thumbs up to. And that's what the Black Ops budgets are out there. We don't even know how big the Black Ops budgets are for the CIA and other forces like that. We don't know. We don't know how much money is being spent. But here's the thing, is that we have the Department of Defense spending up here, but then we have the Department of Defense is training soldiers that are then operating for the CIA and other organizations within the government to do all the nefarious things that they want to do, but they don't want to actually have U.S. troops, therefore. This is common practice, friends. And even the United States soldiers that are on active duty sometimes pretend like they're contractors. I know these things for a fact, okay? These things are absolutely happening in the background. I've talked to people. I've been in the realm of that stuff, and that's what's happening out there. So anyone who says that, you know, we're not actively at war, we're not actively participating in this war, is really just playing a little word game. The absolute truth is that U.S. soldiers are there. Now, whether they're working for a contracting company or they're working for the CIA or whether they're working for the U.S. government and pretending like they're not. When you take your dog tags off, doesn't mean that you're not actually still employed by the U.S. government. And that's what the United States is doing, and French President Macron, the war chihuahua, is like, let's do that too. And the UK saying similar things. They want to deploy more troops. So when we hear Poland coming out and saying that the support for Ukraine must be immediate and intense, there's no other way to understand that to see more munitions. That's already happening right now. But then in addition to that, more support troops going into Ukraine. It's escalating very much like the Vietnam War did, except the situation is very different than Vietnam. The situation is very different. We're not talking about the Viet Cong. We're talking about the main Russian army. So that's what's going on. We're being dragged and sucked into this thing even more. And they're doing this without any congressional authorizations. They're doing this without any discussion with the American people. They're just ramroding through everything that they want and they think that every red line that they cross that Russia doesn't immediately respond to is something that they got away with. And I think what we're going to be seeing is that Russia has gotten very upset and that they do plan to respond to these things, but they are going to do so in their own time when the advantage is theirs. And I fear for the day when Russia finally has the ability and they feel like they have the planning and the capacity to launch a direct strike against the United States and its allies in Europe simultaneously. And that's what they've been preparing for, is to wipe us off the face of the map. Because they realize that if they don't, we're just going to keep messing with them. We're going to keep attacking them, keep pushing back on them on every front. And there's a certain point where they realize that there can't be both the United States and Russia on the map at the same time, because we're inherently at conflict and the United States knows no boundaries, does not restrain itself or its forces, but rather thinks that everything is on the table. That's my take on it. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching. If you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up here. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you guys later. Steve Poplar, The Poplar Report, out.